Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. I am your host Keith Crockford and today we are chatting with one of our guides, Jack. Hello Jack.
Hey Keith, you all right?
Very well, thank you. I mean, I am chatting, well, I'm not in an airport hotel, but you are in an airport hotel just about to head off to Nepal first, very early in the morning. But we are not going to sit and talk about Nepal today. That could be one for a few weeks' time when you get back. But today today we're going to sit and discuss the last trip that you've only just come back from, and that was our best of Morocco trip. How did you find it?
I tell you what, Morocco, with only doing Toubkal previously, so after doing Toubkal in the summer and in the winter, you kind of get to know Imlil, you get to know Marrakech, you get to know the mountainside of it. But seeing the rest of Morocco is quite interesting. It feels very Indiana Jonesy, in my opinion, is what it feels like. So
the best of Morocco was actually one of our first best of trips that we ever put together. And obviously, for anyone that doesn't know about all of our trips, we've kind of got our best of collection. And these trips are basically picking out the highlights that a country has to offer. Now, Morocco kind of was our first ever one that we launched in the best of range. And the whole point was to pick out the highlights of Morocco and take you around. So if, you know, it is an adventure trip. There is still a lot of walking and stuff involved, but there's no real, in a best of trip, there's no sort of multi-day hikes or things like that. It's a lot slower paced of a trip compared to some of our trekking trips and whatever. But the whole point of them is that if you want to go and visit Morocco, you should be able to do the best of Morocco trip, and then kind of you've ticked off Morocco in essence.
You've done everything.
But Morocco is quite big still. There is quite a lot of getting around. You know, we've got a starting point and an ending point that are different. And the only problem I had with the best of Morocco, when I kind of picked out all of the things that I thought people should go and see in Morocco, we couldn't fit the coast in. And then that kind of had to be an add-on for those people that wanted to go and do, you know, the Agadir Essaouira part of it. But in terms of seeing Morocco, Jack, how do you think, you know, you saw the mountains, you saw the desert, you saw the cities, like, from a terms of a tick list, how do you think that was?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You took everything off your list because there's so many different kind of environments in Morocco. Like you say, you've got the mountains, you've got the deserts, you've got the cities, and going on the trip that we've got, you go around and essentially you're doing the massive ones. You're ticking everything off, like Chefchaouen, which is the blue city. You go to the sand dunes. You go to Marrakech. We start in Casablanca. Like all these big things off. You go and see like where Gladiator was filmed and things like that. It's the big things that you see, and you go, yeah, you've got a comprehensive view of Morocco once you've done the trip, 100%.
And obviously, my age-old saying that many people have copied since is, I think Morocco gives the biggest culture shock for the least amount of air miles.
Oh, you're so right.
In terms of, it's 3 hours to get from London to, Casablanca or Marrakech, wherever you land. Obviously, most people, when they fly into Morocco, they generally land in Marrakech or they might land in Agadir. It is actually quite difficult to get flights into Casablanca, which is where, like you said, you start.
Yeah.
But the Moroccan culture is so different to anywhere else. If you think about a 3-hour flight from the UK, like it's vastly, wildly different, isn't it?
Oh yeah, like you've got. I mean, you've got France, you've got Germany, you've got the Baltics, you've got Italy, all within that kind of scope. And then you go to Morocco, and it's massively different. You know, Islamic country, and you know, such a different environment as well. Because all the other environments in Europe, you kind of understand, and then you go there, and it's just sand. It's sand and dirt and gravel and rocks and all that kind of stuff. So it is a massive shock, 100%. It's even the signs as well. Like you go into, you know, Europe, and you'll see English on most of the signs, and then French or German or whatever it is. But you go to Morocco, and yes, there is English, but you've got Arabic wrote down straight away there as well. And if you've never experienced that before, it's a massive shock as well. So
yeah, and I think you know as well. If you think of like, you know, the countries you've just mentioned there within that 3 hours, I mean, as I always say, it takes longer to get to Tenerife than it does to get to Morocco.
Yeah, right. Ridiculous.
You know, you land in Tenerife, and everything is as you would expect. You know, you could kind of almost be in the UK, but it's just sunny,
warm.
warm. And interestingly, you know, we were having a quick conversation before we started to record the podcast, talking about people's expectations and people's will for wanting Western food. And that can be hard to come by when you go to like Morocco.
It is. The kind of more you go into the sticks a little bit, there's going to be less and less kind of more Western foods, like, you know, fast food places or places that actually serve like Western food. But again, another thing is they might serve Western food, let's say a pizza, but a pizza to them is completely different to what your expectation of a pizza might be. The same as when you go on these on the expeditions, bringing Nepal in. Like you go to Nepal and you go to some places and they go, oh yeah, I'll have a pancake, and you go, oh yeah, pancakes, that'll make sense. And they're like literally full-size cakes that you have on the plate. So it's definitely different.
You know, take you an hour to chew through, and you're still only halfway through it.
Yeah, but tagine's a big one. I love tagine. I think tagine's great.
I could eat tagine every day. I love tagine. Like the meatball and egg tagine is my like personal favorite, which is, you know, that is my go-to.
Because some of the clients had that on the trip, and they had that meatball and egg tagine. It looks like it's almost got cheese in it as well, but it doesn't. But it came out sizzling, and it smelled fantastic. I had camel tagine whilst I was out there, which was actually quite nice. Yeah, I was like, I've got to give it a try, you know, and it just tastes like stewing beef. You know, and you have it in like a pie or a stew. Yeah. It's just that, but a bit fattier. And I thought it was great. It was a bit bad that I rode a camel the next day, but you know, it's always
when in Rome, as they say, when in Rome, you know, you should you should be trying these things, and that's part of these, you know, the best of trips is that we want to show the true side of, you know, what Morocco's like. So. Let's just look at the trip then, because, you know, like I say, most all of our other trips start in Marrakech. You know, we've got quite a few trips to Morocco. Obviously, we do the Toubkal Winter, Sahara. We do the whitewater rafting one. You know, they all start in Marrakech. Even the coastal adventure starts in Marrakech before it heads out. So this is the only one where we don't start in Marrakech, but we finish in Marrakech. But you guys flew into Casablanca, didn't you? So just talk us through the trip, like, you know, in a quick day by day of what you were up to. Yeah.
So I mean, we flew into Casablanca, which is kind of weird because it's bigger. It's bigger than Marrakech. You know, there's skyscrapers, and when you think of Morocco, you think you're doing all these, you know, remote towns, and that is the case. But you fly into this extremely skyscraper-esque city, and you're like, oh, actually, this feels a bit strange. But we flew into Casablanca, and then when we set off the next day, we looked at the massive mosque that's in Casablanca, which was great. And then we kind of headed off out of there, and we were kind of heading out towards further inland towards a place called Chefchaouen. And Chefchaouen is known as the Blue City. I think it might be on the borders of this podcast, actually. Yeah.
From the picture,
it's so weird when you get to Chefchaouen because it's you're so used to that kind of orange and yellow all day, and then you've been looking at the sky and it's blue. But then when you drop your eyes down to the horizon line when you come into Chefchaouen, it's bright blue. Like some of them are the same color as the side, but some of them are like a deep blue. And yeah, it's brilliant. There's a viewing point where you stop and then you can look out and look at the whole city, and it's pretty cool, and it's pretty steep as well. It's right in this kind of little bowl of mountains, so you've got these mountains behind you, and then the contrast of the blue on the mountain is fantastic. So you get into Chefchaouen, and there's not too many roads in the centre, because in the centre it's all very little alleyways. And a great way that the clients described it previously was when we were there, they described it a bit like what's that town in Greece called where everyone takes the pictures? What's that called?
Santorini.
It's gone out of my head. Yeah, Santorini. So it's a little bit like Santorini, but blue is what it looks like. You know, there's all these little market stalls. It's that similar kind of architecture as well, which is very cool. So yeah, we were in Chefchaouen. We explored the market.
Do you know why Chefchaouen is blue? Did you find out?
So there was multiple answers to this. So there was answers like keep it cool during the day to repel mosquitoes. It was a cultural thing. Those are some of the answers that we found out. What have you got? What have you got?
That was pretty. Yeah, it was like you say. It was to keep the houses cool in the summer. Mosquitoes, yeah. I've heard, and then I've heard that it was a religious tradition as well from the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Was it something about painting their homes blue to symbolise the sky in heaven? Was the
yeah, something like that, because it was settled by Jewish like nomads. I might be wrong, but I believe it was settled by Jewish nomads. I remember a long time ago. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think now it's for the aesthetics and for tourism now. Yeah. I think that's why they are continuing it. But I think it was one of those three reasons was the original reason of why it was. Yeah. But it is kind of a bucket list tick, isn't it, Chefchaouen? With
100%.
You go there, the streets, they're all painted blue, the houses are blue, and it's just kind of one of those things. As we're trying to achieve with the bucket list is to tick it off and say you've been there. It's very, it's one of those destinations that has become very Instagrammable, and you see it a lot. 100%. But in terms of how did you think it was? Because obviously we've also got to think about over tourism when we're thinking about these destinations and we're visiting there. Like, how did you find it? Like, you guys went in September, so still quite, in the tourist season. Like, how busy did you find it while you were there?
It definitely was busy. I think what's a good point that you're saying there, because obviously now it's geared towards tourists, and we're talking about Western food, and there'll definitely be more places where you can get Western food coming there, because there wasn't many there. But what they're catering for, or what they have catered for quite a lot in Chefchaouen now, is Chinese tourists. Like, there's multiple Chinese restaurants in Chefchaouen to cater for the amount of Chinese tourists that are there, because there's loads. So I definitely think for such a small town, because it's only got 40,000 people there, it's relatively small. There is a massive influx of people coming to see it, especially like the Chinese tourists as well. But it was busy, but it wasn't like overcrowded busy, if you know what I mean. You noticed there was a lot of.
Could you get pictures of empty streets if you wanted to?
I think if you got up early in the morning, you could. Yeah. So,
but it wasn't the other interesting thing that you found out and that the group found out, because obviously anyone that's traveled with the bucket list company tends to know that our clients do like a drink in the evenings, but you did kind of struggle over there. Obviously, Morocco is hard anyway, with it being a Muslim country, but there was only one bar there, wasn't there? Muslim country, so it's definitely hard to find places to drink. I mean, more places now like Marrakech, you can find somewhere to have a drink. There's some sky bars and the restaurants serve beer. But like I say, out in the sticks, it's a lot harder. There'll be places that sell beer,
and then there might be a kind of bar area above where they sell it, and you can have a drink in there. So yeah, there was only one in Chefchaouen, and it feels very old school because they can smoke indoors. The locals smoke in there as well. So you go in, and it's like going back to when you could smoke in pubs. It's a bit strange. But yeah, as you progress further inland, it's much harder. Like only a few hotels or certain restaurants have beer, so you got to be, or cocktails. So you got to be on the look for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that when we do the whitewater rafting trip, it's a case of stopping off, and if anyone wants to stock up with a few beers for the camp, they've got to get it before they get there.
Yeah.
I mean, they are
They're
a lot more open to it now, aren't they? I think because of tourism and that influx of Westerners coming, that kind of they feel that they're on holiday, and for some people, part of their holiday is having a drink. We're not talking about going out and getting absolutely smashed here. We're just talking about a drink in the evening or whatever. But that's what people kind of want on their holiday, and obviously Morocco has adapted to that. Like you say, the big hotels in Marrakech. But when you head out to the real local communities, it's impossible in kind of just unheard of, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, especially with some of the views that you get. I mean, because a lot of the places and the riads that you stay in are going to have rooftop terraces. Like you go to those rooftop terraces and it is the perfect place to have a drink, like a Casablanca, which is the beer, as we know. The perfect place to have a Casablanca is on those rooftops, looking at the sun setting on a blue city. Like it's so picturesque. But yeah, it's difficult to find.
So where did you head then after the Blue City?
We headed to Fez. So we headed to Fez, where the hat was originally from. No one bought one. I was going to, and I think some people were going to as well. We never ended up buying one. None of us wanted to pull a Tommy Cooper, have and have that on there. But Fez is quite an interesting one as well, because on the way you can go and see some Roman ruins, which is insane. You go there and you shown the layout of these Roman ruins, and it's insane how advanced they were for the time. And it's literally in the desert in the middle of nowhere. It was originally, I can't remember the name, but it was a strategic position for the Romans in North Africa. But then you head further into Fez, and Fez is quite interesting, because if you've not experienced Marrakech before and you experience Fez is almost like an intro to Marrakech in terms of busyness and the souks and things like that, because you go into the center of Fez and their markets and their and all their stalls, and it's not chaos, but it's definitely more organized than Marrakech, because you've got different streets selling different things. So you've got the leathers, you've got foods, you've got silks, you've got different clothes, because Fez originally was like at the crossroads of the Silk Roads, so massive kind of merchant town. And yeah, it's definitely chaotic when you go on your tour of Fez in the Medinas. So it's great.
And
I did.
Did you find Fez still very old, or did you find it had the modern side to it as well, like Marrakech?
I think it definitely had the modern side, because I think they've kept it very kind of segmented, if you will, in that way, because you've got the Medinas where you've got all these different market stalls, and it feels very old. I keep saying Indiana Jones, but that's the only thing I can describe it to, or it reminds me of. Or like Tatooine in Star Wars, you've got all these odd things. You see the leather works as well. So when you're in the old town, you can go up onto the balconies. You can see them treating all the leathers to then be used to make jackets or bags and sell them. And it stinks in the politest sense because of what they're using, because they use pigeon feces and all this kind of stuff. And that sounds old, like it sounds like something people did, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but it's still used to create the best leather. So you've got that, but then you go 10 minutes outside of the main center, and there's a fully modern shopping mall which you go into, and you've got all different kind of shops. You've got modern places to eat, and then you've got I think it's called the Vault. It was called the Vault, and it was underneath the shopping mall, and it's where you could buy alcohol. So it's like, where are you going? It's like, we're going to the Vault to stock up on booze. So they've definitely split it. I think it'd be really interesting to see if they could ever mix the two together in certain parts, but they've definitely kept it separate, and it works.
So after Fez, where were we heading then?
Well, after Fez, we headed out into the Sahara. We were heading out to the Sahara, and we went to a place which showcased all the fossils. So the Sahara was originally underwater, and so there's lots of fossils that you can see. There's places which make entire kitchen countertops and bathroom countertops out of this stuff, and you can buy fossils. You can look at the countertops. There's statues and everything, and it's just in the middle of nowhere. It's fantastic, middle of nowhere. There's nothing as far as the eye can see, and you've got this one place which is manufacturing all these things for fossils. But then it took us a bit of time, like maybe a day and a half, to get out into the Sahara, and you can see the difference in the land as well. So you go from like rocky and a bit of greenery and things like that, but then it just starts getting more golden, then it's just sand, and then you start seeing the dunes, and that's quite interesting as well when you get out there, because you definitely feel like you're in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, and that's another thing as well, isn't it? Because if you go to Marrakech, everyone's trying to sell you a trip to the Sahara. It's a day trip to the Sahara, and you get.
I don't know how they do that.
And because it's not the Sahara, that's how they do it. They drive you an hour and a half to some sand outside of Marrakech, and they say you're in the desert. You are in the desert, but I don't think you are in the true Sahara. Like if you want to visit the true Sahara, you do have to sit in a vehicle for a fair amount of time to get there.
100%. And so we got out there. So we got to this one hotel where we kind of relaxed for a while and waited till about 5 p.m. because that's when it was cooler for the camels. So then we headed out to where our camels were. We all got mounted up on our camels, and we cameled out into the dunes to our camp out in the dunes, which was a very cool place. It's just sand everywhere, and then there's just this like tented village that you just appears as you come around this corner, and then that's where you're staying for the night. And it's so great, so great there. You've got fire pits, you've got
what were the facilities like at the camp?
This camp as well. I said this to someone when I got back. It was like, if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, and if you've ever seen one of those medieval shows or movies, and the king has gone on a hunt or something, and you go into his tent, and his tent's like lavish, and there's a 4-posted bed and some chairs or whatever in a tent. It's like that. You go into your tents, and they have doors on first and foremost. So you walk in, you've got a full double bed, you've got two seats, you've got a table, you've got a bathroom which has a running water in the middle of the desert, you have a flushing toilet, you have a shower as well, and it's ridiculous at the fact that that is in the Sahara, and that is at the disposal when you get there. And then you've got the main mess area where everybody eats, and they're bringing out beautiful tagine, and then you can just sit on the dunes, and you can sit around the fire and people are playing songs, or you can sit on the dunes and look at the stars, because there's no light pollution. If you get out of the camp and get into a dark spot, there's nothing around, and you can just see the Milky Way and every kind of constellation. It's wicked, so good.
Yeah, I think if you want to see night skies, then the desert is the perfect place for it. Obviously, the Atacama in Chile is like number one in the world for stargazing. Like if you want to head down there, but obviously it's a slightly longer flight to get down to the Atacama. So if you want to see a great night sky, then the Sahara is definitely a place to do it. Yeah. I know, on our Sahara Desert trek, it's one of the biggest highlights from people is A, watching the sunsets, and then B, the night skies afterwards is kind of what people remember when they're in the desert.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the pictures people get is insane. Like when the sun's out and when the sun's setting, it looks like you're in a Dune movie. And then when the stars are out, it's like there's nothing else around. So it's like you're literally you're in the sky ultimately, because all you can see is these waves of the sand dunes as well. So yeah, it is pretty magical to be only 3 hours away from that.
And photographers always talk about that golden hour is like the time to get the perfect photos. But if you're in a desert, that golden hour, those colors are just amazing as well.
Yeah,
So
it was like a green hue. It's really weird. It was like a green hue in the sky. Where, like, even on your phone, you can lie back and get some pictures, and there's almost like a greenish tinge to parts of the sky. It's very, very cool.
How did you get out of the desert then?
See, well, we had two options. We could either camel out of the desert the same way as we came in, which is great, but it's a bit slower, and you get a little bit of a numb bum on a camel. And so we had the option to 4x4 out. So we 4x4'd out back to where we started at this hotel, and then we carried on to head to our next spot. So the 4x4ing was quite cool. It wasn't quite as all terrain as you might get in those ATVs, but it was still a bit of a bumpy ride. So it was great fun.
Where were you heading next?
And after that, we were heading to we weren't far from heading to Marrakech, but we headed to Todra Gorge before we went to Marrakech. So it's kind of like home of the Berber, like the original Berber people. You head to the gorge, and we did some really cool gorge walking around there, which was good fun.
Yeah, Todra Gorge, for any climbers listening, is a mecca for climbing in Todra. Like, if you want to go climbing in Morocco, then Todra is high up on the list of where to go climbing.
But it's so weird as well because we stayed in Todra. It's so weird because on the way to Todra, you're passing all these kind of massive valleys that have been cut out, and it's like orange sand on the top, orange as far as you can see, and then you drop down in, and it's just luscious green the whole way. It's like someone's like spilled green paint as it goes down the bottom, and it's just these green veins that are just going all across, and you kind of go in them. We did a walk through one of them the one day, and then when we got to Todra, we did a walk through these like water cuts kind of gullies, almost like how it looks in 127 Hours with Aaron Ralston, I think it was. None of those events happened, thankfully. But walking through there, there's massive boulders being suspended in these gullies where water's cut through, and we were walking in there for like 2 hours or something, and it felt like you're on a different planet again. I
saw the photos of that, and just the rock is just so smooth where the water's just come through and just carved its way through over the years, isn't it?
It's like Utah. I think it is in America. It's like Utah in that sense. You got these, we went on one walk. Like I said, we went on one walk where it was like walking almost like through a jungle because it was so green. And then like the next day we were walking through that, and then you get up to a little bit of a higher point, and you can see all these little kind of gullies and trails running off. It was pretty cool. So there definitely are walks that we do. It was good because you're seeing everything, and you've been sat on the camel, and then you go, oh yeah, I want to stretch my legs, and then we did those, and it was a good little stretch to definitely have. And so I definitely recommend doing those walks if people do it.
And in terms of like free time on the trip, like how much free time was there for people during the itinerary?
I think there's just enough free time. I mean, obviously you got to travel everywhere, so that's almost free time if you think of it like that. But when we get to places and when we're doing stuff en route, it's dipping our toe into things like, oh, there's the movie studios. Let's go there. Let's look at the fossils. Let's do here. We've got to walk. Okay, we're walking in the morning. You've got the afternoon free. And there's some other activities that we put on whilst people are there as well. When we were in Todra, we went to see some traditional rugs. We went to the rug. It's not a factory. It's just some guy with his family and other people in the community making these rugs still traditionally and selling them, and money gets donated to the community. We go there. We have tea. You can see the rugs. You can barter. You learn how they're made, and it takes like a year to make some of these rugs, which is ridiculous. It's all still done on a hand. I can't even think of the word, but one of the machines to do it. It's still all done by hand, which is insane. So coming back to it, it's definitely a packed itinerary, and there's definitely things people can do. But the free time definitely does allow you to relax in between the activities.
Yeah, perfect. And then from there, it was straight then to Marrakech.
Straight shot to Marrakech, that's where it feels most Indiana Jonesy to me, in the markets in Fez and in Marrakech, because I think it's that busyness. Because Marrakech, I think, is the culture shock if you haven't been there, because it's just the square, isn't it? The square is just crazy, and you'd never expect to see anything like that 3 hours away from the UK. You know, you've got monkeys in tuxedos, and you've got cobras being with the snake charmers, which is just nuts. You know.
How long did you have when you were in Marrakech then?
We had about 2 days in Marrakech, and that's pretty good. You know, we got there and because you've got the old town, which is in the centre, and some of the trips we stay in the old town. Like when we go to Toubkal, we stay in the old town, which is great because you're right in the mix. But on this one, we stayed out in the new town, which is maybe a 30-minute walk from the old town, and it's much quieter. You know, it's where the hotels are, and people relax in the hotels around the pool and things like that. And then they can walk in past the massive mosque into the old town to get a taste of that chaos and have a little look around all the souks and stuff. So it was good.
What did you do while you were in Marrakech then? Like, what was included, and then what else did people do whilst they were there?
Well, it was good. It's good. What's included is, I think it's dependent on kind of what you can book, because some people booked a cooking class as an extra with us, which was a tagine cooking class, which was really good. They get loads of different people there, and they do different dishes as well. So you make, I think it's like 3 or 4 dishes, which is really good, and you can take it home if there's any spare, but there usually isn't any spare because they make it pretty well. We've also got the hot air balloon, which we do from Marrakech as well. So some of the guys went out in the morning to do the hot air balloon and came back, and then some of the guys went and did the lunchtime cooking class. But there's also a tour of Marrakech that we do as well. So we get one of the local guys. He takes you around all the souks. You can see the local like herbal places. You can see all the different medicines that they do. You can see all the spices, all the rugs, all the tapestries, all that kind of stuff. And you just go to the square and you can just enjoy that time there. And then what we do, we go out for dinner on the night. There's some really good restaurants near the square, which serve beer as well, coming back to what we were saying. And you just look over the square and it's great. There's even a place that serves sushi in the old town. It's fantastic place.
Yeah, I mean there are some amazing restaurants in the Medina now, and you know there is Western options as well in the Medina. But I think the thing with Marrakech now is there is that definite divide between old and new. And, you know, it is called the old town and the new town, and you can certainly see where that starts and finishes. And, you know, I can go to Marrakech time and time and time again, and I love spending time in Marrakech. I mean, you know, I probably couldn't go there now for a 5-day trip because I think I've probably seen it, ticked it all off.
Yeah.
But just, you know, going in there for, you know, 24 hours, you know, before a trip and after a trip is just perfect for me now. But if you've never been, you know, a long weekend is certainly enough time to go and explore Marrakech.
100%.
But, you know, you can stay there for longer if you want to, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you like I say, you've definitely got that kind of the two kind of styles. You either go there for a quick, you know, however many 24 hours, 48 hours, and you're in the old town, or if you want to stay a little bit longer, you stay out in the new town where you can relax and it's a bit quieter and you can dip yourself back into the old town. So yeah, definitely. But I think I'm the same as well. Like we've gone to Marrakech a couple of times now. You kind of know what the deal is. It's not that massive of a shock because we've experienced it a couple of times before. But that shock is great because it's so different, and you're in it and you're like, I just want to stay in it, you know?
And what do you think about, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of people who think, is Marrakech or is Morocco a safe country to visit? You know, is Morocco a safe country for a single female tourist to visit? You know, what's your view on that?
I think it is quite safe. I think it's the same as all kind of solo traveling, if you will. I mean, obviously it's different between men and women for solo traveling. But a lot of places are pretty safe, and places that are quite tourist heavy are going to obviously be quite safe as well because they're used to that influx of people from different places. But you've just got to be careful with these places, you know, like in the souks, for example. The souks are fantastic because you go there and there's all these different intricate alleyways where you can see all these different kind of shops and everyone's trying to sell you something. But in a group that feels, you know, not too bad. But if you're on your own, it can be quite intimidating because you might not know where you're going. So you just got to keep your head about you when you go to these places. And I think you've got to understand the culture as well, and you've got to understand where you're going. Because, I mean, we went on a walk just outside of Chefchaouen, which was to these waterfalls, and it's fantastic. And obviously, it's a Muslim country, so your ladies want to be covered up, and you want to do that to kind of respect the local culture. What you don't want to be doing is walking around in, massively skimpy clothing, right? In these places, because compared to what the locals wear, it sticks out to the locals. So they're going to be, talking to you a bit more and things like that. And maybe that makes people feel uncomfortable, or maybe it doesn't, whichever one it is. It's the same as any. You just got to respect the local kind of customs, I think.
And I think that's the other problem with an itinerary like this, is because obviously when you are in Casablanca or you're in Marrakech, because they've got the new world there as well. Like, they are more open to how people dress, and it's not so much of a shock. But when you head to the smaller, more local, traditional small towns, then they see it completely differently, don't they?
Yeah, it's the same with tourists from all different nationalities. The Chinese like to cover up quite a lot because they don't want to get as tanned, and they have these massive hats on, and you see people staring at them when they go to these really remote places. Or you've got people like the Italians who are really flamboyant with their hands and the way they talk, and they're loud, and that sticks out to people there as well. So all these different little things that is maybe common to nationalities can be massive kind of, not red flags, but it sticks out to the locals. And so it's the same as that. Like, the new world is coming into these places with lots of tourists, but more remote places, they're not as used to it as they are. So it's more of a shock to them. So yeah, I'd definitely say if you're going to more remote places, just research what the culture is and research what kind of common practices.
I speak to the local guides and I've had plenty of conversations with the local guides up in like the High Atlas and stuff. And I've spoken to them about drinking alcohol, and I've spoken to them before, like, would you drink alcohol? No, I wouldn't drink alcohol. But then you speak to like the young new guides that are based in Marrakech, and they're like, we'll go out and drink alcohol. Like, that's that's a normal weekend for us now.
I mean, hash is a big one as well. Hash is grown in Morocco, and in the UK, it's not. You can't touch this stuff; it's illegal. But over there, people are growing it everywhere, and they're just, locals are smoking it on the steps of their houses, and that's a massive shock for us, But yeah, alcohol, hash, all that kind of stuff is so different in so many different places across Morocco. You're completely right.
In terms of it being a bucket list trip, and from your perspective, it was the first time you led that trip. It was the first time you've been to, like you say, you've been to the High Atlas, you've been to Imlil, you've been to Toubkal, you've been to Marrakech. But if you never went back to Morocco and never had the opportunity to go again, would you think now that, yes, I've seen the best that Morocco has to offer?
I think you've ticked literally 99% of the stuff off. One of the other thing people go to Morocco for is the surfing up in Agadir, and that's an add-on for us as well. So if you're a surfer, that's the next thing. That's the only thing you would have missed. But if you do the best in Morocco trip and we do all this stuff, you do a tagine cooking class, and then maybe you fancy a hot air balloon to get those final views. I think you pretty much ticked everything off your list in Morocco.
Well, like I say, that was the idea of that trip, and that's that one sort of led on to our best of collection for other countries and destinations as well. And obviously, people often say to us, like, why haven't you done a best of this country, or why haven't you done a best of that country? And for some places, they just don't suit. How could you do a best of Australia? How could you do a best of Canada? Like, you're talking about massive countries that you're never going to be able to, see the best parts of it.
Yeah.
But with Morocco, we felt that, we could do it with this trip and actually, tick off all of those amazing places and kind of, and the whole point is, the world is a big place. That's the thing. Like, the world is a massive place. And, for a lot of people, they don't want to go back to the same place year after year after year.
Yeah.
They want to go and explore the world and see different cultures and see different countries. And that's kind of the idea of our best of trips, that, you want to go and see Morocco, you book this trip, tick, I've seen Morocco, I can now move on, and now I'm going to go and do Vietnam or Thailand. Or
you can scratch it off your map that you've got. Yeah, you can scratch it off your map and go, I've done Morocco, the next one's Vietnam as an example.
But like I say, the one thing that when we're putting together a best of trip, the one question that I ask myself in the itinerary is, like, would somebody need to go back? Like, would they left there and go, oh, I should have, I didn't have enough time here, or I didn't see this. And from what you're saying, you probably wouldn't answer that with a no with this trip.
No, I reckon we've hit the nail on the head with this one.
Perfect. Well, that's what I like to hear. Jack, thanks ever so much for coming on and chatting with us about our best of Morocco trip. It's always great to have you on the podcast. Hopefully we'll get you back on in a few weeks' time to talk about your experience in Nepal, which you fly out for in the morning. If this trip has tickled your fancy and Morocco is on your bucket list and you don't want to go multi-day trekking through the Sahara or in the High Atlas, then this could be the trip for you. I'll put a link to the trip in the show notes. But that's it from me this week. That's it from Jack. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. But until then, thanks very much and goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.